Hey guys! So today I wanted to share with you my review of my latest video game obsession, which is ReCore. Now this is a game that has interested me for a while because it is a science fiction third-person shooter with a female protagonist who has a robot puppy. So those things alone made me want to play the game. One thing I'm really excited about is that this is the first review I've done in video format, and this is one of the main reasons that I wanted to start making videos, so that I can show gameplay footage while I'm talking about it, and you guys can actually see the mechanics that I'm talking about as I'm speaking. So hopefully this will give you a good sense of the game if you haven't played it yet. That being said, I don't have any game capture software yet, so I'm really sorry this is not in 1080, but hopefully I can remedy that in the next month or two. Normally I'd probably break up reviews in segments such as story, gameplay, stuff like that. This time, I thought it might be more fun to just answer questions that I typically have about games when I'm trying to decide whether to purchase them, and also the things that I think about after I play a game when I'm kind of going over what I liked about it, what I didn't, who I might recommend it to. So those are questions like, is it fun? Is it challenging? What's the story like? What makes this game unique? What makes it different than anything else that I could be playing right now or that I've played in the past? That's what I'm going to be focusing on in this review. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Without further ado, here is my ReCore review. ReCore is a really fun game. I had a blast playing it, especially in the first half. The gameplay is pretty much 50-50 split between third-person shooting and platforming. If you're into platforming, you'll definitely enjoy it because there are lots of different obstacles, there are moving platforms, it becomes more challenging as you go, and there's even some mechanics with the core bots, which are these mechanical creatures that the protagonist brings with her that make the platforming even more interesting. So I definitely think it's unique, and I had a lot of fun with it. I just found it a little bit challenging at times because I'm so bad at platforming. But you know, it was good practice for me, and I will say it's a very, very cool feature in the game. One thing I really liked about the way it was done here is that the controls feel really, really refined. So any mistake that I made, I knew it was my fault. It was not the game not really like responding to the inputs that I was doing or something like that. For instance, when Jules doing a jump, you actually see this target appear underneath her, so you know exactly where she's going to land and you can maneuver accordingly at the last second. That was really helpful for me. But the other kind of gameplay is really what I enjoyed. I really liked the third-person shooting. It's basically Jules boosting around the arena, swapping between these three elemental weapons depending on which enemy she's facing, and dodging attacks. You switch between weapons as you go, so depending on which enemy you come up against, you need to switch to your blue weapon, your red weapon, or your yellow weapon. It's all color-coded and linked to the D-pad, so it's really easy, and it almost seems oversimplified, but it's really fun because you are switching weapons constantly, and there's also no cover. It's not like Gears of War style third-person, shooter where you're like taking cover and waiting for the right moment to attack. It's very fast-paced and kind of frantic combat, which I really liked. Overall, I got a really nice Star Wars vibe from the game, and kind of a Borderlands vibe. Joel kind of reminds me of Rey at first glance from the new Star Wars movie, and the world is very clunky and big, and everything's really heavy, which kind of reminds me of Borderlands. Without giving away too many spoilers about the story, I will say that it's set on a planet that's being terraformed, and the protagonist, Jewel, is one of the last people there, and the terraforming has gone wrong. So it's kind of up to Jewel to figure out how she can fix the terraforming. Now, there are also these core bots on the planet, which are these mechanical creatures powered by cores, and they've gone berserk. So they're the main enemies you encounter in the game, because everywhere Jewel goes, there are these core bots who are ready to attack her. But she also has her own core bot, Mac, who's the robot puppy, and she encounters more core bots along the way who help her. So that's kind of the basis of the story. Now, it's not super deep, but it is science fiction, and I love sci-fi. And you learn more of the backstory through Jules' dad's narrating, and you also pick up audio logs as you go that tell more about the backstory. So it's really cool. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite story. It's not very emotionally engaging because Jules is pretty much on her own for the majority of the game. But it's still a cool world, and I enjoyed it. The worst part of the story for me is just what justifies the gameplay, because basically as Jewel is exploring and heading toward her next objective, she's constantly hitting these locked doors, and that is the justification for what she does in the game, because the doors require her to pick up these cellbots or cores, these prismatic cores, and you have to search all around the environment to find them. And I mean, it's fine, it works, it gets the job done, but it's not a very realistic bit of world building. It's not like I believe that these doors exist, and it's very tedious. It's like, oh, here we go, another locked door.
We don't have enough prismatic cores. We have to find more before we can go any further.
ReCore is not a very challenging game, and I say that as someone who is not very good at platforming or even shooting for that matter, but I found the first few hours of the game super easy. There's no difficulty setting, but I had no trouble with the game, and it was really fun. It was kind of refreshing to just kick back on the couch and not worry about dying. You just blast through enemies and have fun. That being said, about halfway through the game, for me that was around the 6-hour mark, I noticed that I came up across a boss who was super tough, and after that, Jewel kept encountering these enemies who were like 4 or 5 levels above what she was. Now, because Jewel was coming across these enemies who were higher than her, I had to grind to level up, and enemies do respawn. So if you have to backtrack through an environment, you're going to see some of the same enemies again and again, and you fight them and you level up. It's not my favorite mechanic. I don't like grinding in games, but I did notice that that was where the difficulty came from. As long as you're the correct level, the game's going to be easy. And because you do backtrack to pick up these cores to open the doors, you're going to come across areas where the enemies are very underleveled compared to where you're at. So if you're like level 20, you're going to go back to this area where all the enemies are level 5, and it's going to feel super easy. Crafting is also really simple. Basically the way it works is Jewel will collect hardware from fallen enemies, and she'll go around the world and find these supply caches, and in the supply caches she will find blueprints. These are for upgrades for her core bots. So there'll be like a new set of legs that have higher stats or something like that. So then she can go back to her home base, which is the crawler, and she can research the blueprints with the hardware that she's collected, and then she can build, basically she's building these parts, and then she can put them on her core bot so that he's stronger. So that's kind of how that works. There's also the possibility to extract cores from enemies, because all of these mechanical creatures are powered by cores, and then through core fusion, that's what they call it in the game, you can actually level up the stats of your core bot. And you have to decide when you're killing an enemy if you want to extract their core at the end so that you can level up the stats for the core bots, or if you want to wait and just let their hardware drop when they're dead so that you can actually upgrade their mechanical parts. So it's kind of a cool balancing act. I enjoyed that feature, and the crafting is super simple. I mean, what I said is all there is to it. It's very easy, and I liked that it was simple. I don't think the game needed to get bogged down in this huge inventory management system or anything like that. It was really perfect for the game. The game has quite a few issues, especially in the last half. Now, for small issues, the main one that I encountered was audio overlapping. Like I said, you pick up these audio logs throughout the world that give you backstory, but the problem is that if Jewel says something in the game, or if the dad's narration triggers, the audio logs don't get quieter. They just talk over each other, and so you can't hear either thing that's going on. And sometimes it was just the placement of the audio logs. Like one time there was an audio log on a platform right in front of a door, so I picked it up, it auto-played, then I went through the door, and it triggered the dad to start talking, and it was really frustrating for me because I like story and I wanted to know more about what was going on, but I couldn't hear either of them. The other small issue, if you want to call it small, is the loading screens. They are awful. They can take at least a minute. My phone was in the shop one day that I was playing this game, and it was so frustrating to have to sit through these loading screens. I could barely do it because, you know, normally if I'm going to sit through a 2-minute loading screen, I'm going to be checking Twitter. Sometimes I was actually taking notes about ReCore on my phone, but I didn't have my phone, so I was just sitting there, and it was really awful to just sit and stare at a screen. The bigger issues are the fact that toward the end of the game, it feels like the game is working against you a little bit. Basically, you hit all of these locked doors, and you need more and more prismatic cores to open them. So you have to backtrack through the environment to find them. And I mean, I really enjoyed the gameplay aspect of it, but for instance, the map is really hard to use because there's no way to pinpoint your own objective. So if you look at the map and you see where a prismatic core is located, and you want to go get that core so you can open this door, you have to look at the map and then memorize where it is, go find it, and then as you're kind of near it, you have to basically open up the menu again, scroll over to your map, find the point. Okay, it's a little bit to the right, so you have to turn a little bit and then head that direction. It's like I was constantly rechecking the map to make sure I was headed in the right direction because there was no way for me to mark my objective, and it was very frustrating. Another issue is that you can only have 2 core bots in your party at any one time. So basically each core bot has a special ability. Like one core bot can climb, one core bot can smash things. Mac, the robot puppy that Jewel has at the beginning, can sniff out and dig things. So that sounds cool at first, right? The problem is that sometimes when you're looking for a core, you need a certain core bot to do a certain action. And if that core bot is not one of the 2 who are allowed in your crew, then you have to return to the crawler, Jewel's home base, and swap out your crew. Or you have to walk to a fast travel point and swap out your crew there. and then you have to, of course, backtrack back to where you were. So it's very frustrating. ReCore feels like a really refreshing game because of the balance between the platforming and the combat. It's pretty 50-50, and I really enjoyed both aspects of the game. As I said, I preferred the combat because I'm a little better at that than platforming, but I think it's a really nice combination. Some people are comparing the game to Metroid Prime, but I'm not super familiar with it. It does come from some of the same makers of Metroid Prime, but what the game reminded me of most was probably Ratchet and Clank games, because it's very fast-paced, frantic combat. It's really fun. There's some platforming. You know, it's just a colorful game to me, and I really enjoyed it for that reason. The most unique feature from the game for me was the tug-of-war minigame. Basically, when you come across an enemy, you can extract their core in either an instant extraction, if your combo count is high enough, or you can extract their core in this like tug-of-war game. And you also use this tug-of-war game to open certain doors and stuff like that. So basically, Jewel will latch onto the target, and then she'll start pulling, and you have to use the right stick to pull hard enough, but not too hard. You have to kind of give a little bit and then pull harder. And the game gives really great feedback because you can see this red line appear and these squiggly lines on the rope. So you know when it's about to snap, you know when you need to ease off. It's not too tricky. It's not like I had a lot of trouble with it, but sometimes the rope does snap and you have to try again. It was just a fun little mechanic that I'd never seen in a game before, so it added some variety, which I really liked. I would say ReCore is a really great game for anybody who's looking for something just fun and breezy to play, something you don't have to think too hard about. You can kind of mindlessly go looking for cores. If you like platforming, it's really fun. If you like third-person shooting, especially with the combo-based, like frantic kind of pace, it's really, really fun. So I would definitely recommend it for the gameplay, especially for someone who's looking for like a palate cleanser between bigger, heavier games. It's not like the story is super strong where you really want to know what happens at the end. It's more like a game where you kind of kick back for a few hours, relax, enjoy yourself. It gives you a ton of gamer points, so that's always a big plus. I think that covers it. Thank you guys for watching, and following Robo Heartbeat and all that good stuff. Bye!